Like most young guys, my real name, Tom Collins, is Clarence, but luckily no one calls me that. I giggle when I introduce myself under my nickname, Tom. One of the main goals in life was sex. I didn't care if I liked her personality, what her skin color was, or her ethnic background or religion or lack thereof. Of course, if she were also rich, it would not hurt, but it was too difficult to hope for it. Because I look good nature's merit, not mine. I am in good physical shape, this is my merit, and I was rich until I was disinherited at the age of 22 after graduating from college. This is my parents' merit, and only partly mine. I've never had a problem getting sex. For many years, mostly during and after college, I rated women solely on sex. They say there is no such thing as bad sex, and I found that to be true. So I started my rating system with a 5 and took it to 10. I only found one woman who was a 10, and it almost killed me. To be honest, I knew she was married, and her husband, a 6-foot-tall, 130-kilogram weightlifter, missed me by less than a minute. It took me a week to recover from the trauma of that near miss. I have found many 7s, 8s, and 9s in my quest to sleep with as many women as possible, trying to find a single 10 with whom I could start a real relationship. But despite the fact that at 26 years old, I have not yet found one, I enjoyed the search. After my first job out of college didn't work out, I got a job as a troubleshooter for the CEO of ZTY Inc., a corporation with about 250 employees. I didn't really like my boss very much, a very nice guy named Nate Burleson, but he paid me significantly more than the market, and the work was interesting and exciting. One of the things I didn't like about Nate was that he was a womanizer. You probably think I'm being a hypocrite for disliking Nate because he was chasing women while I was doing the same. However, there was one significant difference between us. He was married. I fully intended to become monogamous as soon as I found this single 10, and the way Nate went about it was rude. Nate was married to Julie Stevens. She kept her maiden name, a woman my age and 11 years younger than Nate. Julie is not a beauty, but she is definitely pretty. In fact, although it's so corny it's stupid, I'll still say that if you look up the word cute in the dictionary, you'll see a photo of Julie holding a new puppy. By the time I had been at ZTY for about a year, I had met Julie 3 or 4 times and liked her. She was personable, kind, and empathetic. About 14 months after I started working at ZTY, Nate called me into his office and locked the door. He only did this when he had some kind of secret task for me that he didn't want other employees or the board of directors to know about. "Tom, I really need you to do something for me. It's not during business hours, but it's a bonus for you and it shouldn't be a nuisance," Nate grinned. "Okay," I answered carefully. "I need you to take Julie to a gala dinner on Saturday night." Nate began before I interrupted him. "Why can you not?" I blurted out. He raised and then lowered his eyebrows, like in the old Groucho Marx movies. "I have something better," he chuckled. Yes, a guy in his 30s, the CEO of a company, was giggling like a teenage girl. "It won't work," I answered, crossing my arms over my chest. "I have my first date with Ashley, a woman I really want to impress, on Saturday night, and canceling it would be the kiss of death for me." "Listen, dude, if you cancel your date, I'll pay for you to take Ashley to the most expensive restaurant in town next weekend. I'll even give you a limousine," Nate begged. I really wanted to impress Ashley with her figure and flirtatious personality. She could be the elusive single girl I was looking for. Plus, I liked Julie, even though I didn't want to contribute to Nate's cheating, so it didn't seem like it would be a bad time. After a moment of silence, during which I went over everything in my head, my arms still crossed over my chest, and with Nate looking at me like a puppy at a dog biscuit, I answered, "Dinner is supposed to take place at Goodbye, my friends. And you're going to book me a table for 7 p.m. Saturday night next week because they're always busy and you'll have to pull some strings." Nate replied with a big smile, "I got it, man. Consider everything done." And now the details of Saturday evening with Julie. That same day, I called Ashley and, as I expected, told her that I would be with her at Goodbye My Friends on Saturday next week before breaking the news that I had to cancel the Saturday because of teamwork. She always wanted to go to the restaurant Goodbye My Friends, which has 2 Michelin stars, which is the maximum for a restaurant within a radius of at least 300 kilometers. So I actually earned points for switching places rather than getting a cold reception and no chance of getting a top 10. I picked Julie up on Saturday at 6:30 p.m. as planned. I checked the condition of my car beforehand, hoping that would let her know that I was looking forward to the evening. Not that Nate had made me do it. She was wearing an expensive summer dress, that's what I called it. But I'm not a fashion expert, so I don't know if such a thing even exists. A diamond necklace, a pixie hairstyle, 8 cm heels to match the dress, and a bracelet that matched her necklace. Once again, I thought, her photo with a puppy in her arms must be the definition of cute. It turned out that the main guest at the gala dinner was Julie herself. She's so modest that she didn't even tell me about it when I called to ask if I could take her to dinner since Nate wasn't smog, and didn't mention it in the car on the way there. She complimented me on how clean and fresh my car was and how much attention I paid to it. However, we never lacked topics for conversation. She was more charming than unhappy that I was replacing her husband, which is quite justified for many women. The dinner was hosted by the largest non-profit organization in our metropolitan area. Julie received the Volunteer of the Year award. So many people said so many good things about her thoughtful nature and personality, her dedication and hard work that I could tell she was embarrassed, but always humble and gracious. A lot of people there thought I was her husband. Apparently, no one from the charity had ever met Nate, and the first few times I corrected people. But after a while, I stopped caring and just accepted their congratulations on having such a wife, a special woman. In addition to dinner, there was dancing, and Julie literally beamed when I danced with her. Nate never wanted to dance, she admitted shyly at one point, but I really like it. She seemed to fit perfectly into my arms as we slowly danced. When I dropped Julie off at her house at the end of the evening, I swear there were tears in her eyes. Thank you very much, Tom. I know you probably turned down a date to take me out, but I really appreciate being able to go with someone I'd be so awkward on my own. You're a great guy, and I hope you weren't too bored. Actually, I had a great time too, I smiled. Julie kissed me on the cheek and said, "Thank you for saying that, even if you didn't mean to." I squeezed her hand and smiled widely before turning to leave. A strange feeling came over me in the car. I realized what I really meant when I said I had a great time. I considered Julie a friend, a valuable friend. That night, lying in bed, I had wild dreams. The next morning, I didn't remember much of what I dreamed. I just knew what I saw, but what little I remembered of my dreams was mysterious. It turned out that me inviting Julie to her event and then Ashley to Goodbye My Friends went great. I had a wonderful time with Julie, and Ashley was so impressed by the limousine ride and dinner at the most prestigious restaurant within a 200-mile radius that she insisted on taking me to her apartment. While Ashley was very willing and grateful, I was a little disappointed that she wasn't the 10 I was looking for, even though she was a solid 8. Since I had no more attractive prospects at the time, and since I thought she might eventually become a top 10, she and I entered into a discreet relationship. Although I was only thinking about Ashley, for some reason my thoughts often returned to Julie. I noticed that whenever I thought about her, I felt a warm feeling. I really couldn't say why. If I thought I would only see Julie at company events where spouses and significant others are invited, that idea was proven wrong when, a month after the gala dinner, Nate called me into his private office for another secret conversation. "Listen, dude," Nate began, making me wonder what kind of CEO of a company calls his employee dude. "Julie says she had a great time with you at the gala dinner, and I need your help again." "I have to be out of town this weekend on business," he said, again doing his grumpy Mark's grimace with a devilish smile on his face. "And Julie has another team performance at a charity ball that she's in charge of." The term charity ball is a derogatory name Nate uses for dances that raise money for charity. Dude, I really need you to take her out. To my own surprise, I immediately asked, when will this be? Friday night at the Hilton Hotel, I think around 7 p.m. I had plans for Ashley on Saturday night, and she was probably expecting it on Friday, too. But we didn't really make those plans, so I thought, why not? Okay, but what will I get in return? I asked. I didn't really need anything, but I didn't want him to think I was a weakling. He paid for my Saturday night with Ashley, not at Goodbye My Friends, but at a decent restaurant and club before I took Ashley back to her apartment. Once again, Julie looked at the picture of cuteness when I picked her up. We had very interesting conversations throughout the evening, had fun interacting with other people at the event, and enjoyed skin-to-skin contact while dancing. I never corrected a single person who mistook me for her husband, and I beamed with pride when she gave a 5-minute speech about how worthwhile the cause was and how many donations from guests would go toward educational activities for underprivileged children. During our conversation on the way home, Julie mentioned something about a movie she wanted to see that Nate wasn't interested in. I could go to an afternoon session tomorrow, she mused, even though I hate going alone and none of the friends I contacted were available. I would like to see this too. Let's go together, I announced before the word available had even left her lips. This took me by surprise. Where the hell did this come from? I complained to myself. Would you really go? Julie grinned. That would be so fun. I received another kiss on the cheek when I dropped her off at her house, and as I drove back to my apartment, I talked to myself. Why did you volunteer to go to the cinema with her, idiot? I know you like her as a friend, but doesn't that seem a little inappropriate since she's your boss's wife? And why the hell is your face red? That night, I had vivid dreams again and was still almost exhausted when I woke up. Once again, the only parts of the dream I remembered were a bit disturbing, and I slapped myself in the face. My movie is a date with Julie, when Nate was still out of town and no doubt cheating with some hottie, was extremely enjoyable, but then I got angry at myself for going with my boss's wife, and especially for acting as a teenager, when we drank a milkshake together through 2 straws at the soda table. However, my afternoon date with Julie became a much bigger problem when I was with Ashley on Saturday night. I was with her again, but my thoughts were about a completely different person. Over the next 3 months, I began to lead a strange life. I saw Julie at least once a week, often just over lunch on a weekday or while cycling or hiking on a Saturday afternoon. I really liked her, and it was clear that she liked me too. When I was with her, I felt a warm glow. I had never experienced anything like this before, and I did not have the intelligence, emotional strength, or experience to interpret it correctly. For some reason, even though Ashley wasn't someone I was interested in forging my first real long-term relationship, I really needed sex, and she was very agreeable, so I continued to date her, usually conducting 1 weekday evening and 1 or 2 weekend evenings at her apartment. Then a catastrophic event occurred. I had another closed-door meeting with Nate when he told me he was leaving again that weekend. It was clear he was cheating with someone else wench, and asked me to take Julie to her next charity event. This time, although I pretended that it was a big burden, I reluctantly agreed without any additional conditions. I agreed with Julie that I would pick her up at 6:30 p.m. on Friday. When I got to Julie's mini mansion at 6:25 p.m. and rang the doorbell, she answered in shorts and a tank top. I was puzzled. I thought it was a black tie event, I muttered, standing on the porch of her house in a tuxedo. Did I choose the wrong time and clothes? No, that's not true, Julie grinned. Come in. Our plans have changed. This was the first time I had actually been to Nate and Julie's house. It was furnished expensively and tastefully. Come on, let's sit in the living room, Julie said, taking my hand and leading me to the sofa in her living room. When we sat down next to each other, Julie was still holding my hand. I didn't pull away. Tom, I think you and almost everyone who knows Nate well knows that he's cheating on me. This made my eyes widen. I didn't have enough self-confidence to hit him for that. I didn't have that confidence until I went to a gala dinner with you when Nate was obviously cheating with some woman. Over the past few months, you have given me the confidence to not put up with this anymore. I want to thank you for this and tell you that I would like to have a romantic relationship with you. There will be no event tonight. I just told Nate it was happening so he could invite you to come with me. I'm not entirely sure how long I sat there, looking into Julie's aquamarine eyes. I know there were many thoughts running through my mind before what happened next, but I can't remember which ones. I've never felt so good. I was truly puzzled, perhaps even stunned. Why did I feel so good? I spent the night with Julie. I think I slept more soundly than ever in my life. When I woke up an hour later than usual the next morning, Julie's sweet face was smiling at me. "Thank you very much, Tom," she said with tears in her eyes. "I really needed this. This may have been the first time in my life that a woman sincerely thanked me for sex." After breakfast, Julie put her arm around my neck and asked, "Could this be the beginning of a romantic relationship? Tom, I truly enjoy your company and what you did to me last night, and this morning has given me the most special and serene feeling I have ever experienced." "What about Nate?" I asked, not wanting to be a bore, but wanting to make sure that she would be with me out of revenge. "I don't love Nate anymore because of his cheating and how dismissive he is of me. If I have a better option, I'll take it." With these words, she kissed me. I left Julie's house around 11 a.m., kissing her again and promising to think about our relationship in the future. After I left Julie's house that Saturday morning, to say that I was confused would probably be the biggest understatement of my entire life. I couldn't sort out my feelings. I decided to call Jim Crowell, one of my classmates and best friends from college. We were probably the coolest guys on campus, and I was surprised when he got married 2 years after graduating from college. I went to his wedding and was surprised at how happy he seemed. "It's not my favorite drink, though," Jim chuckled as he answered the call, apparently reading Tom Collins on his caller ID. We hadn't spoken in a couple of months, so we spent a good 10 minutes catching up. Then I got serious. "Jim, I'm really confused. I need your opinion because I have never experienced such conflicting feelings before. As you know, I strive for perfect sex before marriage, but I met a woman who is physically no different from the ordinary, but when I am next to her, I feel really good. I don't know how to interpret this." I was about to say something else, but his laughter interrupted me. "What the hell is so funny?" I growled, outraged that he was laughing when I was being serious. "Dumb bastard. Are you in love? That's what it feels like. You probably didn't have sex with her, but you made love to her," Jim chuckled. My brain froze. I don't know how long I was silent, but it was long enough for Jim to ask, "Are you still here, Tom?" Yes," I finally answered, although I was still only there physically and not mentally or emotionally. "You've obviously never been in love before, you stupid bastard. I hope you didn't ruin your relationship with her by being stupid." "But what about my desire to find sex that's 10 points?" I muttered. "This is such a stupid idea. I was sure that by now, you're 27 fucking years old, you'd be over it. Love's so much more important than sex that they aren't even in the same solar system." We chatted a little more, although I don't remember what we talked about, and then I sat motionless in my favorite chair, thinking in confusion. Finally, I came to my senses and called Julie. "Hello, Tom," came her joyful voice when she answered after the second ring. "Hello to you too, cutie," I also answered in a cheerful voice. "Tell me, when should Nate return?" "On Sunday afternoon," she answered. "Why do you ask?" "Can I take you out to dinner tonight and maybe we can cuddle after? Shall we hug?" She laughed. "I thought you had a date with Ashley today." After last night." Ashley may already be in the past. I called Ashley, lied about not feeling well, and asked her to cancel our date that night. I picked Julie up around 6 p.m. and we went to a regular restaurant. I watched her closely throughout dinner. I couldn't deny that whenever I looked at her, I felt warm and cozy. We took a leisurely stroll around a pristine lake in a local forest reserve to digest our dinner, holding hands like a couple of teenagers. Then we went to Julie's house. As we looked into each other's eyes, I said 3 words that I had never said to any woman before except my mother, sister, and grandmothers, but this was different. I love you. The smile on Julie's face lit up like a Christmas tree. I love you too, Tom. What are we going to do about it? We're going to express our love for each other tonight, and then we'll figure it out in the coming weeks. Sounds like a plan, she said before starting to giggle. That Sunday morning, as I drove home from Julie's, I threw out my sex evaluation system, concluding that it had been stupid from day one and that I was too naive to understand it. I didn't waste time telling Ashley either. I called her that same day, came to her house, and admitted that I was in love with someone else and apologized if I had deceived her. Ashley made it easy for me by telling me that we didn't have a long-term future together, and although the sex was fun, she could easily move on. Over the next month, Julie and I saw each other as often as possible. I felt warm and comfortable around her, even when we weren't having sex, just going to an event, riding bikes, hiking, or drinking milkshakes like a couple of teenagers. Julie and I were making plans about how we could break away from our current lives and be together when another strange thing happened. Nate called me into his office for another of his secret meetings. Locking his office door, he said, "I think I have a problem, Tom," this time calling me by my favorite nickname, rather than dude. "What is this?" I asked. "I think Julie is having an affair." Luckily, I don't know how I didn't laugh, blush, choke, or show any extreme behavior. Instead, I calmly answered, "Why do you think that?" She seems so happy. A radiance emanates from her. Sometimes it seems that she is looking into space. It's just weird. This time I laughed. "So, let me clear things up. Since your wife is happy, does that mean she is having an affair? Because there is no way she can be happy with you." Nate looked at me strangely for several seconds. Then a strange confession was made. "Well, I wasn't the best husband. I cheat with others sometimes, but that's because she's not that wild in bed. But I'm not going to put up with her cheating with someone else. I need your help." "How can I help, Nate?" "I'm leaving with a new girl this weekend, and while I'm gone, I want you to keep an eye on Julie's activities. While I'm gone, she'll probably meet her lover. Can you take photos, figure out who it is, and let me know? Why don't you hire a private detective? Because it's expensive, and you'll do a better job because you work for ZTY Inc. and personally to me. Do you think I will do this for free?" "No. Look, I'll count Friday night, Saturday, and Sunday until I get back around 4 o'clock in the afternoon as 6 working days. I'll give you an estimate for them right now." My mind was full of evil plans. The one I carried was great. "Fine. You write a memo to HR right now, this very minute, paying me for 6 days for the work I will be doing this weekend, and you tell me a place where you will be with your girlfriend and keep your phone on at all times." "Why do you need it?" "To make sure Julie doesn't go to the same place and to be able to quickly inform you about it. Perhaps even provide you with information right away in case you need to take some urgent action," I replied in as sincere a tone as I could muster. Nate thought for a moment and then said, "Okay." He wrote out a memo for the HR department and wrote down the name, address, and telephone number of the resort where he was staying. I found out that he paid for it from ZTY Inc., our employer. The next day, I met Julie for lunch. "Listen, honey," I said, using one or more of the endearments I had used for her, "I think we should hire a private investigator and get to the bottom of Nate this weekend so you can have positive evidence and get a quick divorce." "With him. Of course, I'll tell him we're not having an affair, and I'll suggest you stay at my apartment this weekend in case he asks someone else to look for your lover. Next, I think I'll make an anonymous tip to the ZTY board of directors to have an independent accountant review Nate's expenses. Little did I know that he was taking money from ZTY for his affairs with girls, and they wouldn't like it. As he struggles with this and the divorce, we can get through it together. Julie smiled. I like it. We can agree $5,050, or do you want me to pay for it? I asked. You take action and pay for it first, but I will reimburse you for all expenses, she smiled. Are you sure? Do you have money for this? I know you only do volunteer work, and I don't know how carefully Nate manages your finances, I asked with concern. No problem, she answered with a slight laugh. As a rule, problems can be expected with almost any plan. Something always happens to ruin or complicate everything. That's why it was so surprising that our plan worked without a hitch. I told Nate that Julie had been in one place all weekend and no one had come to see her. I think this might technically be true since we spent the entire weekend at my apartment. The private investigator I hired and that Julie paid me for was a good and resourceful man and got all the materials Julie needed to divorce Nate for adultery. She handed him the documents on Wednesday after he returned from his last date. The ZTY board of directors received an anonymous tip about Nate's fraudulent travel expenses and immediately took action. The independent accountant they hired discovered not only numerous fraudulent expense reports, but also actual embezzlement. The board turned the investigation over to the local prosecutor, and Nate was arrested and, to my surprise, did not have enough money to post bail. I would have thought that at the very least he could have pledged his mini mansion as collateral. As soon as Julie filed Nate's divorce papers, I asked her to marry me a week after the divorce became final. She agreed. We went away for 3 weekends to seal our engagement, and I came back happier than I've ever been. A few days after we got back from our long weekend, Julie had a surprise for me when I got home. Now I lived in his house with Nate, and Nate was in prison. I have good news, dear, she smiled. You're pregnant, I grinned. No, fool, that will have to wait until we get married, she laughed. The good news is that Nate has agreed to the divorce, and it will be quick. It will be final in 30 days. What? I exclaimed excitedly. How did you manage that? Well, Nate really wants to keep him out of jail for years, so I went to ZTY and convinced the board of directors not to press charges, and I got the prosecutor to agree to let him plead guilty to a misdemeanor and get 90 days probation. Term. In exchange, Nate agreed to a divorce that would pay him just $50,000 and immediately leave him at least 700 kilometers away. I was shocked. How the hell did you manage to pull this off? He didn't even demand that you sell your house and split the proceeds. And why were the ZTY board and the prosecutors so accommodating? I was so stunned by this question that I almost fell. Well, Julie giggled. Even though I never lied to you, I didn't tell you anything important that even Nate didn't know. The trust, of which I am the sole beneficiary, is ZTY's largest shareholder and owns the house outright. I was the biggest donor to the Dawes' last campaign, and she owes me a debt of gratitude. I helped ZTY pay for everything Nate embezzled or defrauded them. I stared at her in even more shock than before. I think I muttered something incoherent, but I'm not entirely sure. Julie noticed my predicament and gently sat me down on the couch. Thanks to my trust fund and many other assets, I am the richest woman in our state. I don't work for money, because I have no reason to, but it gives me great pleasure to volunteer and anonymously donate money to many worthy causes. I hope it doesn't change your decision to marry me. She said the last statement with a straight face. My internal laughter at this statement brought me out of my stupor. I smiled mischievously, picked Julie up, and carried her upstairs to our bedroom. Subscribe to our channel so that your second chaff doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think about listening to the next one.